All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to the 10 customer behavior triggers every marketer needs to know. So does this sound like you? You want to get more results from your digital campaigns, but you're already doing everything that's supposed to work. If it does, I have some good news. What you may want to do is factor in some new information to your campaigns and your creative executions. This new information concerns how your customers and prospects make decisions. Very important, right? Behavioral scientists have spent a lot of time and energy studying how people make decisions. And what they found is really very interesting. What they found is all of us, men, women, young, old, rich, poor, highly educated, not as educated, B2B environment, B2C environment, all of us rely on decision-making shortcuts. So at this point you say to me, well, Nancy, what is a decision-making shortcut? I'm going to tell you. It is an automatic, instinctive, reflexive response. Humans have developed these over the millennia as a way to conserve mental energy because we couldn't possibly weigh every bit of information before making a decision, or we'd never get around to making any. So instead, we've developed these hardwired behaviors. And what happens is we kind of cruise along through life, wait for it, on autopilot. We cruise along through life on autopilot. And when we encounter a certain situation, we just default to these hardwired behaviors, giving them little, if any, thought. Think of it this way. If you and I were talking in person, and this was before the pandemic, and I sneezed, what would you do? You just automatically say, God bless you, or Gesundheit, right? You wouldn't go, oh my gosh, Nancy just sneezed. I wonder what I should do. Should I say something? Should I not say something? I think I'll say something. What should I say? No, right? You would just, I hope she can give me COVID, right? Yeah. But prior to the pandemic, no, you would just automatically, reflexively say, bless you, Gesundheit, right? Social scientists have identified hundreds of these automatic responses that people have, these hardwired behaviors that people just go to. And some of them influence what we read, who we trust, and when we buy, which is why they're so important to us as digital marketers. So what I want to do today for the next half an hour or so is share with you 10 ways that you can trigger automatic responses, 10 ways that you can trigger some automatic behaviors, and you can channel that into your marketing campaigns, your strategies, your creative executions, in order to increase the likelihood that you get the response you're looking for. So our first trigger is something called the endowment effect. And the endowment effect was a term that was coined by Richard Thaler. Richard Thaler recently, in the last several years, won the Nobel Prize. So Thaler identified something called the endowment effect. What he found was, if there's something that we want to get, if we want to acquire something, well, obviously we value that something. That's why we want to get it. But once we get it, we value it even more. Once we think of something as ours, we place even more value on it. It's why, imagine you decide you're going to sell your house, right? You say, okay, I'm going to sell my house. So what happens is you call the real estate agent. You say, I want to put my house on the market. Real estate agent says, great, no problem. I'm going to run the comps. I'm going to find out what houses in your neighborhood with your square footage and your condition sell for. And then I'll let you know what we're going to put it on the market for. You say, great, perfect. A little while later, the phone rings. The real estate agent says, okay, I ran the comps. We're going to put your house on the market for X. And what do? You say, oh, that's all? No, higher, right? It's our house. We value it more. We place more value on it than somebody else might be willing to pay. That is the endowment effect. So how do we use this in marketing? Well, it's a company called Bot 18. They wanted me to buy a bottle of wine by 11:59 tomorrow. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's not that hard to convince me to buy a bottle of wine, okay? But I applaud their efforts. They used something called the endowment effect, which we're talking about. What they did is they said, you have $15 of unused credit in your account, right? It's in my account. They didn't say, hey, buy a bottle of wine and we'll give you 15 bucks off. Buy a bottle of wine and we'll take $15 off when you're checking out. No, in that case, they would have the money. But it's a subtle but very important shift. They told me the 15 bucks was in my account. In my account. However, it was going to expire by 11:59 tomorrow. Better buy that bottle of wine, right? Really good use of the endowment effect. Now, there are others. This is Publishers Clearinghouse. They are masters at motivating behavior. And look what they're saying, right? They've assigned you your prize number, and they say, okay, it is time for you to please accept your title or surrender it. We must have your decision regarding prize number ownership. And suddenly you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to surrender it? Listen to that language, accept it or surrender it. It's prize number ownership. And you really think twice about whether or not you're just going to dismiss it, right? Well, here we have UPS. And they say, you know what, Nancy, we've missed you. Our records indicate you haven't been by in a while. To keep your registration active, log in. Do nothing and your registration is going to expire. And what happens when people see that? They go, oh, no, you don't. My registration, my account, I set it up. You're not taking that away from me. We react against it, right? And if I have to show up and visit that site just to show you that I'm not going anywhere, then that's what I'm going to do, right? So really good use of the endowment effect. So remember, remind people of what they own. Now they could own it, like it could be that 15 bucks that was in my account. They could own it because you gave them a free trial or a starter package or a free sample. They could feel like they own something because you've described something so vividly, so richly that they already imagine what it would be like to have it. All of those things make people feel ownership. And when people feel ownership, that's a very good thing. Okay, our second trigger is something called the motivating uncertainty effect. And what social scientists have found, scientists that were researching at Hong Kong University in China, they found that people are actually 68% more likely to complete a task with an uncertain reward. So when you think about it, we're in marketing. What do? We offer incentives very often, right? We talked about that at one of the panels earlier. You know, I will give you this if you do this, right? Do this and I'm going to send you that. It's that, very transactional exchange. And we know that that works. We're in marketing. We know that if we say to someone, do this and you're going to get this, a certain number of people are going to do it, right? However, what these researchers found was that uncertain rewards, when you're not sure you're going to get the reward or you're not sure what the reward is going to be, can actually be more motivating, right? We're not really sure what we're going to get. We're not sure if we're going to be able to get it. That adds excitement, and the pursuit of the reward becomes the reward itself. So how do we use this in marketing? Well, this is Sephora. They make makeup. And so they invited young women to upload pictures of themselves wearing their makeup for a chance to get featured on the site. No guarantee, but it was a chance. If I uploaded my picture with the Sephora makeup on, maybe they'll feature me. I'm going to go back and check, right? But it's a win-win. Think about it. For Sephora, those young women already purchased and applied the makeup. They're not returning it, right? That was a sale. And people are more likely to do it when they're not certain if their picture is going to be featured. Here we have something from the Gap, and they're using a slot machine motif. They say, there's only 4 more days for the sale. You can get 20%, 30%, maybe even 50% off your purchase. But you don't know unless you bring the email into the store. And once you bring it into the store, we're going to tell you what your percentage off is. Now, at that point, you're in the store, you're looking around, you're touching the merchandise, maybe you're trying it on, much more likely to make a purchase, right? And you don't know how much you're going to get until you get in, and that makes you more likely. Here we've got a restaurant, spin for your deal. Maybe you get $4 off your next meal, $5 off your next meal. Maybe you'll get a free meal. You don't know unless you spin. You're much more likely to give that wheel a spin just to find out. So remember, give people a chance to win, right? When someone knows what their incentive or the reward is, that can be a good thing, but they can be even more motivated when it's an uncertain reward. All right, our third tactic is something called rhyme is reason bias. And what behavioral scientists have found is something really interesting. They have found that you can tell someone something one of 2 ways. You can convey information in a way that rhymes, Or you could convey the exact same information in a way that doesn't rhyme. So imagine I said to you, woes unite foes. Well, that rhymes. Or I could say, woes unite enemies. Well, that doesn't rhyme, but it means the same thing, right? So what behavioral scientists have found is people judge the rhyming phrase to be more truthful and more accurate, more believable. Why? Because it's easier for the human brain to process things that rhyme. And if it's easier for the brain to process it, it feels right. And if it feels right, it's not a big leap to assume that it is right. So some of you may remember the OJ trial. And what did his attorney say? He didn't say if the glove doesn't fit, you must vote not guilty. No, he said if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Exactly. That's what they did. So rhyme is reason bias. Now, of course, I know I'm a marketer. You guys are marketers. We're not going to be writing everything in rhyming phrases or iambic pentameter. Not going to happen, right? But how do we use this strategically? Well, think about slogans, taglines, straplines, right? Nationwide is on your side. Easy to remember and more believable. What a great place to be. Or here we have Frontier Communications. They say more go for less dough. Oh, okay. Or even your calls to action. Don't delay. Register today. So what you want to do is make key messages rhyme, and you want to choose your places, right? You want high read pieces of real estate, like your headlines, your content titles, your subject lines, your taglines, right? It's not going to be all of your copy, but high read pieces of real estate, more memorable and more believable when they rhyme. Our fourth trigger is something called the psychology of surprise. And researchers at the University of Glasgow found that when we're surprised, it amplifies our emotions by about 400%. It intensifies them by 400%. So why do we care about that as marketers? Well, two interesting things happen when your emotions are intensified. One, it focuses your attention. And two, it makes you more likely to remember the thing that surprised you. Now, we're in marketing. What do we want? We want people to pay attention to our message, and we want them to remember it. So surprise can be a really good thing. So how do we surprise people? Well, there are a few different ways we can do it. Researchers at University College in London found that the human brain is hardwired to predict what comes next. The human brain is hardwired to predict what comes next. So we're looking at this Forever 21 subject line, and it says dress to, and you think kill, because that's what the expression is, right? Your brain fills it in, dress to kill. It's a clothing ad, I'm going to be dressed to kill. And then you go dress to, and your eye gets to chill, and you go, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to say kill. I'm surprised it says chill. So what happens? You've been surprised, right? You're focusing your attention. You're more likely to remember, and in this case, you're going to remember a twofer. You're going to come away with the idea that the clothes at Forever 21 are going to look really good on you because you're going to be dressed to kill, and they're going to be comfortable because you're going to be dressed to chill. Really good use of surprising people in that subject line. Here we've got a flower company, right? Pro Flowers. They got kind of a corny pun, right? Trust us, we're professional. But still, you go, that's cute, right? But you go, fresh flowers, professional service, right? Now, it doesn't just have to be corny puns. It doesn't have to be your language that can surprise people. Your visuals can surprise people. There's an Instagram post for Walmart. We've got this furry animal head, but we've got human hands and a human body. That surprises us. If we see the furry animal head, we expect everything else to be furry and stuffed and inanimate, right? Or if we see human body and human hands, we're expecting a human head. So just the interesting juxtaposition of those two things stops us and makes us go, wasn't expecting that. Let's see what they have to say. So make your messages surprise people. All right, our fifth trigger is something called the Zeigarnik effect. Now, the Zeigarnik effect was named after Bluma Zeigarnik. She was a Russian sociologist. And Bluma Zeigarnik was the one who identified the fact that humans, people, hate to leave things incomplete. We don't like to leave things incomplete. It bugs us, right? We like to finish things. We like to finish things. It's why cliffhangers do so well in the media. I don't know if anyone was a Game of Thrones fan, but even if you weren't, you probably heard a lot about it. People could not wait to find out how is it going to end, right? What's going to happen next? How is it going to end? And we all feel that way about whatever particular show we're involved in or book that we're reading or movie that we're watching, right? We want to know, how does it end? What's going to happen? I want to get to the end of it. And that's the Zeigarnik effect happening, right? It's affecting us. We don't like to leave things hanging. We don't like to leave things incomplete. So how do we use that in marketing? Well, let's talk about loyalty programs for a minute. A lot of times we do loyalty programs, and the classic way is one of those punch cards. It could be online, it could be offline. It almost doesn't make a difference. But, you know, there's 10 blank boxes. You make 10 purchases, you get the 11th one for free. So you can do one of two things. You can hand somebody a card with 10 blank boxes, or you can hand them a card with 11 boxes. First one is already checked, and then there are 10 blank boxes. The difference is, if you do that, if you pre-check that first box, according to research that came out of Wharton and the University of Southern California, people are 79% more likely to get check boxes in all of the other boxes, right? They're going to go make those purchases because the first one is already checked. They've got the momentum. It's been started, and they don't want to leave it unfinished. They don't want to leave it incomplete. Here's something from Snapfish. They're like, hey, ready to finish your photo card? You're almost done. Come on back, right? They're reminding me, look, you came to the site, you started to design a card, but you never finished it. And what happens when I see that? I see that message, and then it starts just lingering in the back of my brain, bugging me. I got to go back. I got to get back. I got to finish that card. And I feel that way until I can actually finish it and cross it off the list. That is the Zeigarnik effect. Well, here we have Vistaprint. They're thanking me for registering for the site, which I did, and then they're showing me my special offer, and I've circled that first one because it's very interesting. It is a picture of a business card that I designed. We were talking about personalization a little bit earlier. That's personalization. That's the exact business card I designed when I was on the site. And they're like, you designed it, but you don't have it. You didn't buy it, right? So we're going to give you a discount to, you know, kind of prompt you, because you designed it. You must need it for something. Why not buy it? So a nice example of the Zeigarnik effect. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. I never did buy it. I designed the thing, then I got distracted. Come back and buy it. So trigger the human need to complete. We do not like to leave things unfinished. All right, our sixth tactic is something called availability bias. And when behavioral scientists talk about availability bias, what they're talking about is the fact that people will judge the likelihood of an event happening based on how easily they can recall a relevant example. People are going to judge the likelihood of something happening based on how easily they can recall a relevant example. So let's pretend you have never flown, never set foot on an airplane, never flown, and someone says, how safe do you think it is to fly? Well, I've never been on an airplane. I don't know, but I've read newspaper stories. I've seen, news reports on the TV news about airplanes and flying. And now that I think about it, there seems to be an awful lot of crashes and fatalities and engine parts falling off midair and planes having to turn around and go back to the airport they took off from. It doesn't sound like it's all that safe to fly at all, right? Based on those stories which bubble up to you, you might say, yeah, not so safe to fly. Now, of course, it is safe to fly. The news media just doesn't report about the millions and millions of safe landings because, well, it's not news, right? But based on what you hear, you might come away with a different opinion. So what does this have to do with us in marketing? Well, again, people are going to judge the likelihood of an event happening. And in our case, the event is their need for the product or service we're selling. They're going to judge that based on how readily they can recall a relevant example. So before you ask them to buy, first get them to think of a time in the past when if they'd had your product or service, it would have really been handy. Or get them to imagine a time in the future when they can see themselves using it, see themselves benefiting from it. So let's look at a few examples of availability bias. Here we have something from the Boston Globe. They want their subscribers to buy gift subscriptions for people they know. But they don't say, hey, buy a gift subscription for someone you know. They don't even say, don't you know someone who might like a gift subscription? No, they say, Globe.com is an incredible gift for your, and then they list 10 different descriptors. Your avid reader, your political junkie, your sports fan. What do you suppose happens when people read that? They start to call to mind the people they know that fit those descriptions, right? My uncle's a political junkie. My daughter away at college is a sports fan, right? Next thing you know, they've come to their own conclusion that they know up to 10 people that might really like a Globe.com gift subscription. Here we have something from the ADA, American Dental Association, and they are selling disability insurance to dentists. And that is not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do because if you are healthy, if you are able-bodied, you don't think you need disability insurance, and you don't even want to think about the possibility that you might get disabled. So the ADA kind of came in through a side door. Instead of saying, look, here are the statistics, here, it's really likelihood, you should really know this. People are like, no, 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 not me, not me, not me. They came in through the side door and they said, have you heard your colleagues complain about low back pain, carpal tunnel syndrome, varicose veins? Next thing you know, the dentists are like, the last time I was at the local ADA meeting, Dr. Smith from across town wasn't there. Somebody said she was laid up in bed with back pain. Wow, this can't happen to dentists. It could happen to me, right? Really good use of availability bias. Well, here we have something from Nuance, and Nuance was introducing a power PDF. Yep, that's right. They were going up against the market leader, Adobe, right? Everyone has Adobe PDF. They were introducing their own. Not an easy thing to do. So before they even talked about theirs, they laid the groundwork. They set the stage. They said, until now, you and your PDF users have had to compromise when it came to your PDF solution. You either had to pay for functionality meant for architects and engineers, or you had to trade down to less power. And when people read that, they were like, yeah, you know what? That's exactly what I've thought. Or even better, that's what my people have come to me and complained about. Yes. And once people are like, yeah, you know, they've got that context, then they introduce their power PDF and why it might be better. So remember, get your target to recall someone's story. It could be a story they heard. It could be a story that they themselves experienced. It could be something circulating on social media or in the news, but get that context of a story. All right, our seventh trigger is called choice architecture. And when I talk about choice architecture, what I'm talking about is the fact that the way choices are presented influences the decisions people make about them. Now, I know you're thinking, that doesn't sound right to me, Nancy. I think people make their decisions based on their preferences, based on their research, based on their past experiences, and you are not wrong. However, there's something else at play, something that people often aren't even aware of, and it's the way the choices are presented. It has to do with opt-ins and opt-outs and defaults, and the best way to really talk about this is to show you some examples. So this first example, a friend of mine was running the Boston Marathon on behalf of a charity. God love her, she was literally running the Boston Marathon for a charity. I can barely run for a bus, so I'm like, okay, I am going to pledge $100 to your charity. And my confirmation screen comes up, and they're charging me $104.50. Now you can see there's a small orange edit button that I could have hit and said, I said $100, I meant $100, get rid of this other $4.50. But there was a much larger orange donate now button. And you know what? It was just easy enough to hit that 100, close enough, boom, donate now, I was done. Now, I'm not particularly athletic, but a lot of my friends are. So another one is writing the PanMass Challenge, okay, to raise money for cancer research. I have to pledge $100 to him too. Would be wrong if I didn't. My confirmation screen comes up. There's an unchecked box that says, check this box if you also want to cover the credit card processing fee. I know you're going to think I'm terrible, but I didn't check the box. It wasn't like I liked one friend better than the other. It wasn't like I thought one charity was better than the other. No, I didn't think at all. I was just cruising along on autopilot, right? The first one, it was just easier to not have to do anything, just hit the button. Second one, again, easier to not have to do anything, just like, yeah, I'm not going to, just boom, charge my card, right? One more example. This is from right across the river at the American Repertory Theater. I bought a couple of tickets to one of their plays. The pink button, they're rounding up my ticket price to include a donation. That's what they want me to do. They want me to hit that pink button. But I've also circled in red the link that says, I don't want to make a donation at this point. Just charge me for the tickets that I bought, right? So they're prompting me to go for that pink button, but they're giving me a way out if I don't want to. And that is the beauty of choice architecture. What we want to do is we want to lead people down the path of least resistance and have that end right where we want them to be. So it's easy for them to do what we want them to do, and a little harder for them to do what we don't want them to do. Not impossible, just easier for them to do what we want them to do. So remember, choose defaults that lead people to the desired actions, your desired actions. So make sure that the defaults are getting people to do what you want them to do. Not going to lock them in, but it just makes it easy to do. All right, our eighth tactic, our eighth trigger is called framing. And when behavioral scientists talk about framing, what they're talking about is the fact that the words that we use, and in some cases even the order that we use them in, influence not only how people understand what we're talking about, our product, our service, our company, our value proposition, they influence not only how people understand it, but also how people respond to it. So, it's the classic, that glass is half empty, that glass is half full. The way I choose to describe it to you does influence how you see it. So how do we use framing when we're talking about marketing? Well, a great example is with yes/no buttons. If you ever use yes/no buttons in your digital marketing, framing can really play a role here, because what you want is the copy on your no button to frame the consequences of not saying yes, right? So here we have, yes, get the case study now, versus no, I'd rather not know how my marketing is performing. It's like, oh my God, when you put it that way, I better get the case study, right? Research that was reported in the new neuromarketing blog, which is published in the Netherlands, found that you can expect anywhere from a 40 to a 125% increase in conversion rates if you use properly framed yes/no buttons. So they really can work. This is probably my favorite example of framing. This is for plug-in air fresheners. Now, come on. By definition, a plug-in air freshener is going to be masking unpleasant odors, right? It's an air freshener. You plug one of those babies in when your spouse has, cooked seafood in the kitchen, or your kids came home from soccer practice and dropped all their gear at the doorway to the living room or in their bedroom, right? That's what you're using these things for. But that is not how Bath and Body Works frame things. No, they said, open me for an instant getaway. Pick a plug, choose a scent, find your 30-day escape. Every room a destination. They have just taken this plug-in air freshener and made it the ultimate accessory for a staycation, right? All of a sudden, you walk into your living room, you're like, the salt air of Cape Cod. And then you walk into your kitchen, you're like, the balsam fir forest of the Pacific Northwest. You can travel around the country just going in and out of the rooms in your house. It's an air freshener, right? Ultimate job of framing. Now here we have something from American Airlines, and they say the gold floor experience awaits. So they're not saying to you, your gold floor discount awaits. They're not saying, hey, you've got all these points which you can use, it's going to cost you less. No, they're talking about experience. They're tapping into some research that came out of Stanford University not too long ago. And the research that came out of Stanford found that framing things in terms of time and experience can be more motivating, more effective than framing things in terms of money. And the research that led up to this was really interesting. The researchers actually set up a lemonade stand, right? They set up this lemonade stand at a park. And the lemonade stand had 3 different signs. Only one sign would be up at a time. So they would rotate these 3 different signs throughout the day. So they got a lemonade stand, and sometimes the sign said, enjoy some lemonade. Sometimes the sign said, spend a little time and enjoy some lemonade. And other times the sign said, spend a little money and enjoy some lemonade. So enjoy some lemonade, spend a little time and enjoy some lemonade, spend a little money and enjoy some lemonade. So when did more people stop? Bing, 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 right? Spend a little time and enjoy some lemonade. Now, everybody was told, sliding scale, cup of lemonade cost you anywhere from $1 to $3. You pay what you think. When did people spend more? They paid more when it said spend a little time. Everyone who bought a cup of lemonade was given a customer satisfaction survey afterwards. Where did people score highest, have a better experience? Spend a little time and enjoy some lemonade. The researchers found that the thing about time is you can't get it back, right? It's not a scarce resource. It's literally a non-replenishable resource. You can't get time back. And when we're spending time, we're usually experiencing something. And when we're experiencing something, it's often colored with emotions. And emotions are very powerful. Emotions are how we make buying decisions. And the researchers came to the conclusion that motivating people in terms of of experience and time can be more powerful than trying to do it talking about money. So when you're talking about framing things, you might want to consider framing things in terms of time and experience versus money. Remember, framing allows you to get people to see things in a different way. It shakes them up. Maybe it's the air fresheners. I always thought about it one way, but actually now I'm thinking about it a different way. Or maybe it just gets people to see things your way, but that's what framing allows you to do. All right, the 9th of our 10 triggers is something called the scarcity principle. And here's what behavioral scientists have found. If something is widely available, well, we may or may not be interested. If we're interested, we take advantage of it. And if we're not, we don't. Pretty simple, right? But just let people know that that something isn't going to be widely available. Only certain people can have it, or there's only so many, not enough to go around, and that can change everything, right? It's like a switch flips in us, and it makes us want it and want it badly, right? You walk into the break room, there's a half a dozen donuts, and you say, I'm gonna watch my waistline. You walk into the break room, and there's one donut, and you're like, gotta get that before anyone else does, right? It's like, it's the last donut. If I don't get it, I'm not gonna have one, right? That's what scarcity is. Limited quantities, limited times, or limited to some people, but not available to all. So how do we use the scarcity principle? Well, this is Jay Peterman, and they say, you better watch out. If you're holding out for this stuff to go on sale, don't. It probably won't be around that long. And that's a real human thing that we do, right? We see something we like, we think, maybe I'll think about it, I'll sleep on it, maybe it'll even go on sale. And they're basically saying, if you even think you want this, get it now, or you'll likely be disappointed. Here we've got something interesting. This is a company called Beyond the Rack. They take designer merchandise. They put it up for about 48 hours at a really good discount. So there's some scarcity right there. You've got to get in and get out in those 48 hours or you're going to lose out, right? But in this particular case, something really interesting happened. They were advertising Coach bags. I thought, wow, who can't use another Coach bag? So I'm going to go. So I go to the site. You can see there's 3 Coach bags, but I could only buy one of 2 because the one on the left was reserved by others. Which one did I want? I'll just give you one guess because I wanted the one that was reserved by others, okay? But they held out some hope. They said, check back in 12 minutes. Not 10 minutes, not 15 minutes, 12 minutes. Very specific, very exact. And I'm thinking, oh my God, maybe they got some algorithm running in the background there and they know that one's going to become available. And if I went back in 12 minutes and that bag became available, I would grab it because then I would feel that I had the one that I wanted, the one that was hard to get, the one that not everyone else could get, because that's what scarcity is all about. We want what we can't have. We overvalue things that are difficult to get. Another great way to underscore scarcity is to use a countdown clock. As a matter of fact, World Data, which analyzes about 6 billion emails, found that you can get a 22% increase in your conversion rate if you include a countdown clock in your email. Although you can use them on your websites, you can use them on your landing pages. The thing about a countdown clock is it's a very visual and visceral reminder that you're running out of time, right? Each time one of those seconds rolls by, that's time you'll never get back. And the closer that counter is to 0, 0, 0, the more urgency you feel, the more you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to act now or I'm going to miss out. So remember, point out limited times, point out limited quantities, point out limited opportunities. People overvalue them. All right, our 10th trigger for customer behavior is called the reason why. And what behavioral scientists have found is people are actually more likely to do what you're asking them to do if you give them a reason why. They're more likely to do what you ask them to do if you give them a reason why. And Ellen Langer from Harvard University ran an experiment that proved how true this was. There were a bunch of people, they were lined up to use a copy machine. She sends someone to the head of the line and instructs that person to say, excuse me, do you mind if I cut in front of you? All right, so how many times do you think people were able to get someone to cut in front? 10%, 100%, someplace in the middle? Half. Okay, very good. 60% of the time, this is New England. I think 60% is high, okay? But 60% of the time, someone was like, okay, sure, go ahead. Dr. Langer repeats the experiment a second time, but this time she sends someone to the head of the line, and this time she says, tell them, she instructs them to say, excuse me, can I cut in front of you because I'm in a hurry and I've got some copies to make? Well, number's going to go up, right? That 60% number is going to go up, and it did. It went up to 94%. And as I tell you this, you're going to say, well, Nancy, she said she was in a hurry, or he said he was in a hurry, whoever it was. Langer repeats it a third and final time, sends someone to the head of the line, and this time she instructs them to say, excuse me, can I cut in front of you because I have some copies to make? The 94% number drops to 93%, statistically insignificant. Still that huge lift over that 60% baseline. And those of you who've really been listening to me are going to say, but Nancy, everybody standing in that line, oops, I don't have it. Everybody standing in that line was standing in that line because they had some copies to make, right? You don't stand in line at the Xerox machine to get a Starbucks. It doesn't work that way. Langer identified the word because as an automatic compliance trigger. When we see or hear the word because, we start to nod up and down like little bobbleheads before we've even processed what comes next. We just assume whatever's coming after that word because is a good, legitimate reason, and we agree. So how do we use that in marketing? All right, we're back to wine. I told you it is not hard to sell me a bottle of wine, but here's someone else who was trying. They said, try us for $9 because my dad loves us. All right, let's put our thinking caps on. Let's stop and analyze this. Unless I know his dad, unless I know the dad's taste in wine, I have no idea whether it makes sense for me to join the wine club or not, right? I don't know. But we don't stop to analyze. We don't put our thinking caps on. We're cruising along on autopilot. We see this like, oh yeah, I should really give him a try. Why? Oh, well, it's his dad. His dad says it's good, you know? We just go with it. Or here's a headhunter. She's writing to me. She wants to place a candidate with me, but there was a problem. I didn't write to her and say, hey, send us a candidate. In fact, we didn't even have an opening, but she blunts that in the first line of her email. She says, because we expect your organization's always on the lookout for qualified candidates. And I'm nodding away going, yeah, I should take a look at this resume, right? I don't have a position, but yeah, let me take a look. Here we've got an e-newsletter. And at the bottom of the e-newsletter, they say, why am I getting this? And then they say, well, we're sending you this because we thought this information might be beneficial to you. Now, it's a financial newsletter. Now, they could have said, you know, hey, we're sending you this because it's going to 10x your profitability. We're sending you this because you're going to make $1 million at the end of 6 months. Those would be incredible reasons. Of course, they can't say that. It's not true, right? So instead, they say, because we thought you might be interested in it. Really? Like, I didn't expect you to be sending it to people that you didn't think would be interested in it, but that's the beauty of providing the reason why. It doesn't have to be this ironclad, bulletproof reason. Just have a reason. Sometimes we think in marketing, if we just put our product in front of people, tell them what the price is, it's like, well, they know that they're supposed to buy it, but we need to bring things full circle. We need to give them the reason why. It doesn't have to be incredible. It's just, try this, you'll like it. You know, try this because a lot of people like you have enjoyed this. Try this because it's going to make life better for you. Just bring it full circle. So always remember to provide that reason why, okay? You want to legitimize your request with a reason. So we have talked about 10 customer behavior triggers that will increase the likelihood that you get the behavior from your customers and prospects that you're looking for. We've talked about the endowment effect. People value things that they think of as theirs more highly. We've talked about the motivating uncertainty effect, that people are actually more motivated by uncertain rewards. Rhyme is reason bias. Rhyming phrases are thought to be more credible, more believable. The psychology of surprise. When we're surprised, it focuses our attention and it makes us more likely to remember things. The Zeigarnik effect, we're hardwired to finish what we started. Availability bias. We'll judge the likelihood of something happening based on how easily we can recall a relevant example. Choice architecture, how choices are presented, influences the decisions people make about them. Framing, the words that we use, sometimes we think, does it really make a difference? It does. The words that we use impact not only how people understand our message, but how they react to it. Scarcity, if something is limited or only available to some people, it makes it more valuable. We all want what we can't have. And finally, the reason why. People are more likely to do what we ask them to do if we give them a reason why. Now, you can't jam all 10 of these into a single email or a single Instagram post. I get it, right? But when you look across all of your campaigns, when you look across all of your marketing assets, find those places where it makes sense to add some of these tactics in, and you will see your KPIs increase. You will see your engagement rates and your response rates go up because people cruise along on autopilot, and this is going to help you nudge them in the direction you want them to go. So If anybody is interested in a cheat sheet that recaps a few of these, adds in a couple of others that we did not get to, just hit me up at that URL, take a picture of it now or go to it now, whatever. We'll send you the free cheat sheet. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys hanging in here for the end of DigimarCom New England. Now go out and get your response.